Good evening, everybody. Once again, welcome to another Survivors interview. True stories that will impact and radically change your life. As you've been following night by night, we've been hearing real stories from average, everyday folk just like you, living in the real world, living in society there. And we are listening to how they came to a place to make that decision or see that God was worth serving. Jesus Christ was worth serving. We're hearing their stories, very different. Each person from night to night has been sharing honestly, been vulnerable. And I'm hoping, expecting, I've seen the comments, I've seen the feedback that people are enjoying it. People are being reached, people are being moved. And today I have a very good friend of mine. I'm going to allow her to introduce herself, tell us her name, what does she do, if you're not working, just say in between jobs, right? Because I think that's more positive, right? Yeah, I'm in between jobs, sounds professional. I remember someone telling me that one day. So she's going to tell us who she is, what she's doing right now. I want to have just a little brief introduction and we'll get this interview started. So go ahead.
Okay. Hi, my name's Paula. I am 37 from the East Midlands, specifically Derby, but I've spent a lot of time in Nottingham. I've got two children, big age gap. I've got a 15-year-old son and a 6-year-old daughter who both keep me very busy and on my toes every single day. So that's me. I work more or less full time for a local authority, which I've done for quite some time now. But yeah, that's me.
Cool. Oh, let me bring up my questions. Give me 1 second. All right.
Okay.
So tell us one interesting fact about yourself.
One interesting fact.
Why are you doing
Okay,
that?
I'm gonna use this one before it gets
All right.
old. But yes, I am a daughter of a internationally known reggae singer.
Oh, no way. Wow.
Yeah.
Thing.
So yeah, and every time I say that, people are like, "Oh, what Bob Marley?" I'm like, "No, no, we're going older than that." Do you know what I
Yeah.
mean?
Oh, well, I was thinking of
Roots
Bob Marley.
reggae. You what? Sorry.
I wasn't thinking of Bob Marley because there's
No,
loads
so
of
many people have said,
big.
right.
Yeah, there's loads of really big time reggae artists, man, who hold their
Yeah,
own. Like, I don't
yes.
know any by name. Well, I do know from school days in the 90s, but even before, I know there's big time who've added before Bob Marley added to the culture, and they've got a name. If you're in that, you would know their names in it. So, yeah,
Yeah.
I was like, that's very interesting.
That's
Wow.
my interesting fact. Yes.
All right, share with us. No wonder you did that. Shall my claim to fame? Shall I say it? Shall I?
I know, but it's not my claim, is it?
No,
But
it is what it is. It's the facts, isn't it?
yeah.
Yeah. All right. Share with us one of your favorite quotes. Doesn't have to be a spiritual quote. It can be if you want, but any quote that resonates with you.
You know what, right? I saw a quote the other day that my cousin posted, and I was like, wow, you know what? It just describes my situation so perfectly and just fitting right for the session today. And it was, you can't burn a woman who's been through the fire.
Ooh.
And
Phew.
that's just a condensed part of, yeah, that's a condensed version of the quote. But yeah, that was it for me. I was like, wow, yeah, that is definitely me.
Okay, that's deep.
You
That's
can't burn a woman who's been through the fire. Yeah.
wow. Wow.
I don't know
Maybe.
who did it though, sorry. You know,
Another.
you see about a million memes. It's just
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
this one, no, I don't know. It might have been my cousin, but it may have come elsewhere. But that was just spot on for me, definitely.
So maybe I'm hoping that you're gonna maybe something in your story is gonna bring that out why that resonates with you, hopefully.
Yeah, yeah.
All right, next question.
Okay.
How long have you obviously we know that you're currently a Christian. So tell us a bit about did you grow up a Christian, non-Christian, was there religion in the home? Yeah.
Okay. So um basically started going to church from about the age of 4. So that's probably the start of the journey.
Right.
And it was basically, do you know what I mean, me and my mum, my sister came along a bit later when I was about 11. But yeah, going to church every week. It was routine. There was no thought about anything else really. Do you know what I mean? That was my life. Every Sabbath, we got picked up, went to church. And that's just how it was. Growing up in church, had some fabulous experiences in church. It was fun when I was younger. Yeah, I've still got a couple of good friends from church who I'm still friends with now. But then I became a teenager and things started to change. And yeah, my mindset started to change. And then church became boring. Church became a chore. Church was draining. Like I was actually starting to get quite annoyed at being woken up on a Sabbath morning to go to church. And this was probably around, I think it was around age 13, 14, when I was just, and I think one of the, I remember a time when I was meant to be meeting my mum at church across town.
Right.
I think I was 14. And this is specifically when it hit me that I was actually so tired of this.
Wow.
And I was meant to be meeting my mum at this church, and it was the day of carnival.
Oh, you don't need to say no more. Oh my days. Carnival in London, carnival, big carnival.
No, I wasn't in London. I was at home in Derby, isn't it?
No,
So
it's the carnival, Nottingham carnival.
no, I was living in Derby at the time.
Oh, and
yeah.
not in Nottingham Hill. Sorry, carnival in London is what I'm asking. The big carnival in London.
No, that's not where I was at. It was literally carnival in Derby Town Centre, and I had to walk through Derby Town Centre
right,
to get to this church.
right.
So obviously, all my school friends are there, music. I'm more or less just for church, but obviously I'm meandering around carnival.
So carnival's in Derby, happening in Derby, and you have to walk big Saturday morning, sunshine, because carnival's usually in the summer months.
Yes.
You go sunshine, there your church closed. And everybody that you know is there. Everybody
that I know is there. So naturally, I'm stopping to talk to people. Naturally.
Yeah.
And then I think maybe about 2 hours went by, and you know, when you just get checking your phone, and my mum's called, isn't it? And then it's like, service is done now, isn't it? Right. So yeah, where were you? I'm like, oh mum, yeah, I just saw my friends in town. I didn't even tell her it was carnival, I don't think. Right. Because she's never really been into those things. Right. She's just not really been into that side of things since being in Derby. Right. So yeah, sorry mum, I've just bumped in, like, saw loads of my friends in town. You know, you was on your way to church. Yes mum, I know, so sorry. And then that's kind of when I realized I'm tired of this.
Right.
Tired of it. And to be quite honest, in church, there wasn't many teens at my age.
Okay.
There literally was about, I think there was about 5 of us at one point, which was a bonus.
Wow.
Yeah, so to have that kind of network in church that supports, like, I had more peers outside of church than inside of church.
Right.
That's just how it was.
Right.
There's nothing I could do about it. Don't get me wrong, I've travelled to loads of different churches around the UK, but I was never really part of anything specific to kind of keep me there all the time.
Right.
Also, as well, there was a time when I was having Bible studies. I think from about age 13 to 14. Okay. And at the end of the studies, it was that natural question, like, okay, so are you ready for baptism?
Yeah.
I'm like, nope. I wasn't ready for baptism. Right. Why? Because it's like I almost realized that Christianity wasn't just about knowing your lesson books and knowing the Bible studies. I didn't really know who God was, who Jesus was, what church was about. I just felt it's more of like a social setting that we did on Sabbaths as a group of Christians,
Right.
rather than me understanding Jesus, God, and our purpose for being in church and being here on earth.
Okay.
So I was extremely reluctant. My mum never pressured me about baptism at all, never did. So I'm so thankful to her for that. But yeah, I just drifted away from church.
Okay. Wow.
Yeah.
That's interesting. So would you say it was just a natural progression in that, you know, your friends outside, influence, things that happening, normal everyday things that happen? Would you say that just became more attractive than going to this building once a week, sitting down for our services, what, 4 hours?
Yes, it's an all day thing, isn't it? So
Yeah.
unless you've got them youth days or the days of fellowship that
Right.
were quite fun,
Exciting,
it was just a case of the regime of it all was draining. And even just simple things like, obviously I'm a teenager at that time, so simple things like when my friends talking about what's on TV and the Saturday TV, it's like waiting until my mum's gone to church, and there's always that instruction: don't turn the television on whilst I'm gone. Okay. Okay, give it an hour, television's on. And it was just feeling like I was normal then, feeling like a normal teenager,
right.
rather than this person who was kind of semi-forced to go to church.
Right.
Do you know what I mean? So that's how I felt. And also as well, got family in London, so used to go to London growing up, Christmas, Easter, summer holidays, and apart from Christmas, Easter, and summer holidays, I was there without my mum. But my grandma was a Seventh-day Adventist.
Right.
But my auntie and my cousins who I was staying with weren't Christians at all.
Right.
So every time Friday came, my uncle, who lived with my grandma, would be coming to collect me about an hour before sunset. I was be like, oh. With tears, my cousins would be crying, I would be crying, and my auntie would be ringing my mum like, does she have to go to church? And my mum's like, yes, she's going. It's like, oh, goodness sake. So going, it's like, oh, I'll see you after Sabbath, cousins. And then, yeah, be going to my grandma's, and it's just like, oh my gosh. Yeah. Love my grandma. I mean, she's passed now. She's passed that, but yeah, man. And then, do you know what I mean? And like I said, it just got to that point, getting to a teenager, where it's just like, oh, I can choose now. Wow. To me, I don't have to go. I don't have to be forced to go.
Right.
It was around the age of 13, when I kind of detached from church.
Wow, that's quite young. It's funny when I'm listening to your story, because mine's not so extreme in terms of it, because I had positive experiences growing up in church, but the feelings of boredom I can resonate with many a times, man. I can resonate with, and it's funny how we just don't forget, because as you're saying it, I can hear the same emotions coming back, because we don't forget. We don't forget.
But like I said, we had so much good times, like, I mean, the camp meetings and these different days. It's just that the whole ritualistic element of it, I couldn't really relate to it. There's nothing outside church for me to think about church and about God. Do you see what I'm saying?
Right.
Outside of church was just secular setting. That was it, really. Yeah.
That's interesting. So from your experience, it just seemed for you, it was just that day alone, and that's it. And even not just the day, but the church itself, the service, going to the building. So once that's over, did Christianity, God come back to your mind in any way, shape, or form? Was there any kind of thoughts?
I didn't kind of detach from it fully.
Right.
It was more the going of it. I just didn't want to be there every single week. Right. So I'd go the odd time, I'd go the odd day, or I'd reach there for divine, or I'd reach there for afternoon program. But it still wasn't every week. Right. If there's potluck, I'm there.
That's one thing about our church for food.
Right.
That's one thing. It's funny, it's true. When you invite people, you say, look, there's going to be food. Like, I'll come for the food. The food is always Banging. It's always good, always delicious and nice. Well prepared Caribbean food, man.
All right then. So yeah, I was there, and then yeah, fast forward a little bit, and then by the time I got to 17, I'd left home.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's
So,
from 17. That's young.
but imagine what God did when I left home at 17. I wasn't living far from church.
What do you
In
mean
fact,
like that you got?
the place that I was in, which was supported accommodation, was literally 1.5 minutes from church.
They 1.5 hours. One and a
No.
half minutes.
The way God's dropped it is that I've always been close to church.
Wow. Wow.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So literally out my street, turn left, and you can see church at the bottom of the road.
No way.
Yeah.
So you got
So
that
do you see what I'm
constant
saying?
visual reminder. You got that constant
Yeah.
visual reminder.
Unless I walk the other way, unless I went the other way, generally I pass church quite frequently. So yeah. And if it was Sabbath, unless I didn't want to be seen, do you know what I mean?
Right. You
If I
got a
wasn't
different way.
bothered, yeah, I'd to be quite honest, I spent a lot of time just nipping in just so I could see my mum, do you know what I
Right.
mean?
Okay,
And
cool.
just so I could see my sister and just people that I knew.
Right.
I mean, so yeah, that
So
was.
it seems, let me plug something in there because it seems like you had a kind of a close relationship or a good respect for your mum because sometimes even coming back to the building for some people is like, "Oh, I'm not even going, or I'm going to hide another way, you know." So for you to just go back in and even say hello to your mum, how was it with your mum in terms of, you said she never pushed you to get baptized, which is a positive, which is good. So what was that like in terms of relationship with your mom and church and juggling that,
No, no, no.
you
My
know?
mum's never judged me at all for my decisions. She's always said it's your decision. She's always said that to both me and my sister. That's never changed. Um, she's just been like, do you know what I mean? You know who God is, and that's it.
Right.
Mm. But yeah, I did spend probably about the first 6-ish months, so after leaving home, not speaking to my mum.
Right.
So, but going into church, I still did that dipping in because
Right.
you know your mum can't deny you in church, innit? She can't just she can't give you bad face in church, innit?
No.
Hi, mum. But I'd always gotten a good reception from people. I've never felt like an outsider.
Okay.
I've never, do you know what I mean? They have them jovial questions. How have you been? Where have you been? But
Right.
there's been, everybody's always been so nice and so kind. And do you know what I mean? Like, I still know those people today and
Oh, that's good.
I love them for it. Yeah. So,
Very good.
yeah.
So you've got a distinctive experience in your life where you actually physically left, right?
Mhm.
Obviously, you come back. You're coming back. We've been on lockdown, obviously, you know, so we haven't been able to go to the physical building. When that's going to be for some churches, who knows? It may even be in 2022 for some churches. So help us with that journey of, okay, you've left, and eventually it's not part of your, it has no active part of your life going to church. So running through that journey, how did God, let's say, when I say get your attention, it's not like you stopped believing in him. You always believed in him, right? So how did he get you? And I don't want to emphasize coming back to church because we know it's not about that. It's about your relationship with him. So
Mm.
if you tried to maintain some kind of relationship when you left, or did you actually cut that side of things off as well? And how did God get your attention to bring you to a place where you wanted to have a meaningful relationship with him again?
Well, growing up, I didn't feel I did have a relationship with God. I didn't feel like I even knew God. I just knew of God in the Bible and Jesus in the Bible, the stories, hearing sermons. Even like after I had my son at 21, and I was living in Nottingham, I'd go to Nottingham, the church in Nottingham. I've heard you speak a few times there, but I still did not have a relationship with God.
Yeah.
However, God's always put certain people in my life so that I've still got some connection
Oh wow.
with church, but it's still meant to be it's a godly building, isn't it? So
Right.
it is still in my head.
Right.
But I mean, from the time of leaving church, I've got into all kinds of mess, all all kinds of stuff, where I actually had to think to myself, okay, God, you are there. And it's more of a, wow, God, you are there. And not realizing it at the time of being in the mess, but as I've come out. So like, I've made dumb decisions. To me, like, been involved with drugs, with, do you know what I mean, dabbling in criminality, do you know what I mean, relationship choices. And yeah, just not really, I wasn't really thinking. I've always been kind of like, I've never been one for peer pressure, like to be peer pressured. That's never been me. I make decisions. If I don't want to do something, I won't do it. If I want to do it, or I'm not really thinking about consequences, I'll just do it.
Right.
That was my mentality. But there's been like a few things that I've been involved in where I'm like, you know what, thank you, God. Even for like saving my life, protecting me from being potentially raped. Like, there's a situation where I ended up in a flat. I'd gone on a little mission with my friend. She'd gone to hook up with a guy. I was, I mean, the friend who jumped on board, and then I found myself, imagine, in a flat in the middle of Nottingham. It was pitch black. There must have been about a minimum of 20 guys in the place. This place is pitch black, right? And I was fine. I don't know how I was fine, but I was fine. At the time, I wasn't fine. At the time, I was stressing a little, thinking, okay, is someone actually going to notice that I'm here and there's going to be, do you know what I mean, problems?
Yeah.
And it wasn't until much later when I look back on it and I think, yeah, God, you were there. You know, like when you're in it, you might say, oh, you know, we just say, oh, thanks, God. To me, without, you know, just say it, blase, without really thinking that he was there.
Yeah.
And like I said, it wasn't until later that I thought, okay, God, yeah, you were there. Do you know what I mean?
Wow.
Like, just, I mean, I nearly went to prison. Don't.
I have to laugh because I've known you for a bit now, and I'm like, okay.
Yeah.
You really can't judge a book by its cover.
No, I did something a little bit daft.
Right.
Didn't really think of the consequences, and yeah, I ended up getting community service. Fortunately, it was just that did to me, because the judge was like, I don't know why he didn't, but he was saying for me to go to weekend prison, but in the end, it just came out doing community service. It's like, yeah, and at the time, yeah, thank you, God. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But it's not until later on you're like, oh yeah, yes, God, you were there. You were there. Do you know what I mean? So there's loads of little bits and bobs, really. Do you know what I mean? Of things where I think, okay, God's there, but still, without having a relationship with him. I was the party person. Do you know what I mean? Going out raving, drug dabbling, do you know what I mean? Just recreational. Do you know what I mean? But yeah, and it wasn't until probably my relationship with my daughter's dad, which is finished now. Thank you, God.
You don't even realize you had this little saying throughout. Thank you, God. That was a good one.
So it's like, yeah, it wasn't until that relationship that God actually utilized that relationship to show me who he was.
Wow.
Really.
But I'm assuming that it wasn't good because you said, thank you, God. But then he's utilizing this negative situation to be a turning point in your life. You have to break that down, because that doesn't seem to make any sense. It's just people listening.
Well, when I got into my relationship, my son was about 4 at the time, 4 or 5. And so I was with my daughter's dad for 7 years. And through that relationship, unfortunately, it was a extremely negative relationship, an abusive relationship. But during that time, God also used that relationship to pull me away from the party life.
Okay.
To pull me away from, do you know what I mean? I'm not saying my sets of friends at the time were bad or negative. I was just being pulled away from certain circles.
Right.
So it was just me and him.
Right.
And at the time, obviously, going through this negativity, it was really stressful. There's been physical hurt. There's been drama, all kinds of madness, all kinds of stuff.
Right.
Do you know what I mean? Reports to the police. Yeah, really, really stressful. And at times when I was in despair because something was going on, I'd have barricaded myself behind a door, and he's banging down the door like, "Why are you acting like a child for? Open the door, stop acting like a child." I'm like, I ain't moving. I'd be like, "Lord, please do something." Like crying. God, please do something. Like the pain I felt in my heart, in my chest, made me feel sick. Like there's times I couldn't breathe properly. I was just in distress. And I'd be crying out to God, "God, please do something. God, please do something." And then the situation would calm down. And then what happened?
Happen again.
You just forget God, don't you? Because everything's fine now, isn't it? Thank you, God. And you just carry on.
Right.
In fact, sometimes it wasn't even a thank you, God. You're just like relieved that the pressure is off, do you know what I mean, from that drama at that time.
Right.
So you just carry on, isn't it?
Right.
Carry on until the next drama comes.
Right. And you
Crying again. Yeah. So it wasn't, I'm not saying it was every day, but it was frequent enough for it to be part of this story here. Do you know what I mean? To be like, this was a pattern. Do you know what I mean? This was a pattern of stress, and I'd go to God about it. Crying. Yeah. So yeah, when I saw God do something so spectacular that I could never ever have foreseen it. Never have foreseen it. In fact, it is before that. Imagine, like, me and my daughter's dad, we actually planned to get married. Despite the mess, despite the drama, we actually loved each other. And we wanted to try and do things properly.
Right.
God blocked our wedding plans. Not once, not twice, but 3 times.
Wow.
3 times. So 3 successive years, God's like,
Nothing just managed to work out. Everything.
Nothing managed to work out. Like the first year we were flush that year. The first time we were doing our wedding plans, we were pretty flush. Right. We paid off half our wedding. Right. We paid off half our wedding, including the honeymoon.
No way.
So we went on honeymoon anyway. To me, wait a minute, that's big money, mate. You know what I mean? We got to go to Mauritius. So, no, sorry, we had to go there. Right. But yeah, it was a case of, it's just like we couldn't understand what had happened. Right. His work had been a bit up and down, but it was just a case of, we're gonna have to just put this on hold. Right. Okay. So he put it on hold for the following year. Right. So this is around between 2013 and 15. So have to put it on hold the following year. And then like his work was up and down still because he's self-employed. And it's just like nothing was going right. And then when it came to the final time of trying to plan this and kind of scaling things down as much as possible, because I'd already had my dress, I already had my shoes. Do you know what I mean? Certain things were pretty much sorted. Right. We had the venue sorted because I'd been really accommodating all that time. And then we got a call from the venue to say that they're not having any more weddings at that venue anymore. So what they said was to either bring our wedding forward if we could, or we'd have to cancel, unfortunately. Oh man. Couldn't do it. We couldn't afford to do it sooner. Right. So we had to cancel. Right. Wow. Sold my dress on eBay. Because at that time, I was like, you know what? I didn't even see God working there. That's the joke
Right.
about it.
Yeah,
I didn't even see it. It was a case of like, what? I've had enough. You know what? Forget it. Just forget
Right.
it. I had this book, this massive bag of wedding books.
Wow.
Bought all my wedding magazines, all my cutouts. The whole bag went in the bin.
Wow.
Whole bag went in the bin. Anything weddingy, I just got rid of.
Right.
And sold my dress. The only thing I've still got are my shoes.
I was gonna say, you know, have you still got the shoes?
Still got my shoes in a box, yeah, all wrapped up, yeah. So I didn't even see God. Do you know what I mean? God's work then.
Wow.
And I had little one in 2015, and it was just focusing on our family. However, drama still. Do you know what I mean? It was still stressful, and I make jokes saying, "Oh, she wasn't really supposed to be here," but I feel that God sent her because she was actually part of the catalyst that brought me back to God.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and because the relationship was so strained a lot of the time, he used to get annoyed if she was in a cot crying for too long.
Right. Right.
So I started, because I got to a place where I didn't want nothing to do with him. I didn't want nothing to do with him. I got to a point where I just had enough.
Right.
So when she was crying in the night, I was like, oh God, because it meant that I took her and went to sleep downstairs.
Right. Right.
This pattern where I'd get her up and we'd sleep downstairs.
Right.
So this detachment from him.
I was gonna say, did that help detach
Yeah.
you emotionally away?
Yeah, that started me detaching from him and me going towards God.
Right.
I mean,
while the emotions are still fresh, you genuinely do like the person, love the person. You use the word love.
No, I was everything. All that emotion was starting to break down. Like he will say it now himself, and I always said to him, "Imagine a block of ice, and you've got an ice pick. If you carry on hacking at this block, what do you think is going to happen?" I've always said it to him. It's going to break down.
Yeah.
And that's what ended up happening. Not by my choice. It was a natural progression of, do you know what I mean, just detaching from this person, because I literally was getting to the point where I couldn't deal with it anymore. It was draining. It was tiring. And I was trying to obviously look after the children too.
Right.
So without going into the details of all that mess.
Yeah. Yeah.
I know you know some of it already, but yeah, it's not for this. But yeah, it was a case of historically we'd gone in our relationship when it had really got to the peak of the drama. He'd be like, right, I'm leaving, and it was always a ploy to get me to be like, no, please stay, I'll do this, I'll change, I'll do better. And it's all these unrealistic things I'm saying for the good of my relationship. And it would be a case of, okay, things would then calm down when I had subscribed to a couple of things that I was now going to do for the good of our relationship, of course. Yeah. And then it came to a point, it was September 2017, and I think he realized that I'd just had enough. I'd had enough. And he sat on the sofa and he says, right, I think we need to talk. I'm like, like, oh, you're not into me. I can tell you're not into me. And do you know what I mean? There's so much stuff going on. And I think we should call it a day. Now, usually I'd be like, what do you mean? Oh my gosh, no, please, let's stay. I'll do this, I'll do that. And it's like, imagine, because when I reread the story recently about Noah's Ark, and it wasn't Noah who shut the door, was it?
No, that's right.
Back then, it was God and his angels who shut the door. Yeah. And they had to shut the door, I imagine, because Noah and his family would have seen their friends outside and felt compelled and felt emotional to let their
Wow.
friends in to save them.
Wow. Wow. That's a bomb. That's a gem, Paula. Woo.
Say,
That's
would
love.
you not? Would you not want to save your friends?
100%. You're going to be like, just get in. Just get in the boat. What are you
Right.
doing that? You can see it's raining now. And people would have obviously, once they saw the evidence, would have tried to clamor in. So you would be
Yeah.
like, yeah, it's okay now. Come in at the last second. Anyone would genuinely have done that. 100%.
Anyone would do that.
100%.
God sealed up my mouth like the Noah's Ark door. Even
Wow.
I couldn't believe it until afterwards. It was to a point where I couldn't even find any words to speak, even if I wanted to. Even if I wanted to speak, there was no words that came out. So
Wow.
when he's giving his speech about us separating, I'm like, that's all I could say.
Wow.
And then after doing his speech, he's like, right, wow, I can't believe we've finished. I can't believe it's come to an end. I'm like, yeah, I know. And it's like, there was nothing left in me for me to salvage anything at that point. Nothing there at all.
Wow.
And he moved out about 4 weeks later. Obviously not without a little bit of drama, a little bit of parting drama. But yeah, for me, yeah, when he left, I just sat on the sofa with the kids and I went,
Wow.
thank you, God.
Wow.
And then rearranged my living room because I couldn't bear to sit in the same position as
Right.
we had been as a family. I just moved everything around.
Wow.
And I think this is what God did. Like, I had never had my own car. I passed my test in 2011
Right.
and was always driving his car. This car had been used as a tool, as a pawn to disrupt and upset certain elements of my life. So
Right.
if I wanted to do something and I needed the car, a lot of times it was an issue. So I didn't
Right.
have my own car.
Right.
But during that 4 weeks when we had, when he was moving out, I applied for a job. And I think the week after he left, I got the job. The job said essential car use. I'm like, I don't even have a car. Imagine how God works now. So remember I said to you that there wasn't many of us teens in church growing up.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, what I didn't tell you is that those teens whittled down to just me and one other, me and my friend. Yeah.
Right.
Now my friend, Mike as well. Yeah. He left church around probably a little bit after me. So he's got his own story as well.
Right.
But his family have always stayed in church. Mike went back to church, to our church, the year before I did. Yeah. So at that point when I'm applying for a job, I've still not gone back to church just yet.
Right. Right.
And I think I went to a service at church, probably, I think it was the week that I realized I got the job.
Right.
And I was saying to my friend Max, oh, I don't know what I'm going to do.
Right.
Let's go find a car. It's like, P, man, guess what? I've got a car sitting on my drive. You can borrow it.
No.
What? What? He goes, yes, man, I bought a car from someone. It's not sold yet, right? It's sitting on my drive. You can use it for free until I find a buyer.
No way.
So I wasn't even looking at what God did for me. I'm looking at where God placed my mum, because my mum's got her own story about why we're even in Derby in the first place.
Right.
Yeah. So it's like, wait a minute. So, when you just look at the pattern of events to see God's working before I even decided to leave church, where we placed my mum, so that we've still got these people in church to help us in times of need. Wow. Somebody else in church lent me some money because I didn't have my own laptop, because I've been using his, because he left with more or less everything. Right. Got a laptop, got a car, all that, and a job in the space of 1 week after this man had moved out. Don't tell me God don't work. Don't tell me God doesn't work, because even when you don't know what's going on and you don't know that if God's really there, that for me just blew my mind. Wow. Blew my mind. And then I started going back.
So correct me if I'm wrong. It sounds like you saw those as evidences of God's hand in your life. It wasn't just a laptop, it wasn't just a car, it wasn't just a job. These were tokens that got beacons, like like lights down a pathway to say, hey, I'm the author of that. I'm
Yeah.
taking care of you. I'm the author. Despite all the mess that's gone on, despite where you're at. And okay, so how did that make you how did that make you feel? Was that, so are these kind of like tiny beacons to get you to a place where, what's the turning point for you where you would say, how did your relationship start with him? Because he's showing you evidence. What about
Yeah.
you now? What did you have to do to kind of make your decision, so to speak, to kind of go, all right,
Well,
I want to make this step with you?
well, I'm still not baptized, right? I haven't got baptized yet. But what I did say as a commitment to God, is that I'll make sure that my daughter knows who you are. Not just about church, she must know who God is. Because growing up, like with my son, I'm trying to think, I think I've taken my son to church a few times in Nottingham, but in Derby, I would, every other weekend, he'd be at my mum's. I'd be having my little party weekend, and my mum would take my son to church.
Wow.
And then obviously he got older and didn't really go, and I wasn't really going. So I'd never really took those steps to actively take my son to church regular. And so I decided, because my mum has always said to me, she said she didn't want to send me to church. She made the decision to take me herself. Do you know what I mean? Just so it doesn't look hypocritical anyway. I mean, and so we could be there together. So that was my kind of commitment, to make sure that I took Christina to church, and and that she knew who God was. So that was kind of like the turning point for me, because even up to now, like it's been what, 3.5 years, and I'm still on that. Do you know what I mean? Kind of preparing for baptism, kind of thing. It's more ingrained in my mind as something that I want to do as soon as possible. But I'm just going through a little bit of a process right now. But yeah, that at that point was like, yeah, let me make sure my daughter goes to church. So my son's, do you know what I mean? To get my son to go, I had a bit of leeway, but he hadn't really seen me take him. So when he got to a certain age, I can't force him. I'm not dragging him. But so what I did is, like, whenever God's done something for me in my life, I've told my children about it. Oh my gosh, you never guess what God's, oh my gosh. Do you know what I mean? It'll be like, that's some bizarre things, like things that have just totally blown my mind. Like, even like God gave me the exact money that I needed for something the other day. Like 2 things I had to pay for the other day. And he gave me the exact money minus I had £1 left. And I had to tell the kids, like, oh my gosh, you won't believe what God's done. Because it weren't me who did it. It wasn't the system that did it. God did it. Do you know what I mean? So all these little things, even things like, I'm always losing my bank card. Oh my gosh. I don't know what it is. I'm always misplacing this thing. Any normal person would put it in a purse, wouldn't they? Do you know what I mean? But because I've got like a little bag to carry around, because I can't bother to carry a big bag around, my purse is quite big. So what I've done is, it's quite heavy. So I've took the cards that I need out of the purse and put them directly in my bag. So I've got less to carry. Why do I use this card? So God, please, man, please help me find this card, Lord, please. And then it's just come to me. So I told the kids. And I think it's so important, not just to take your kids to church. You need to show them what God actually can do, from the little things to the big things. I think it's like when you're telling them about your mate. If you're telling, do you know what I mean, somebody about a good friend of yours, do you know what I mean, you're going to say what they've done for you, are you not?
Yeah, that's right.
Do you know what I mean? You're not just going to take them to the house and then leave and then not speak about them during the weeks. You're going to actually say, listen, this person actually did this and this for me, you know. So you see them in a higher regard than just somebody who you hear about once a week.
Yes, that's deep. So, was your perspective different about, and I'm assuming it was, about God Himself, His character, Jesus, and to now? And what changed your perspective about God's character and Jesus and all of that?
I think it was just a case of I'd done so much relying on, do you know what I mean? The kids' lesson studies and that growing up, rather than picking up my Bible and reading my Bible for myself. Don't get me wrong, I still don't read my Bible every day. I'm still not quite there. However, I'm more aware of the resources and tools available to learn about God.
Right.
So from my perspective is not just church, because when I went back to church, it wasn't all, do you know what I mean? It wasn't all great. Like
Right.
I've had a couple of problems in church as well, where I've just been like, hold up a minute, I'm meant to be in church. Wait a minute, if I wanted to deal with these kind of people, I'll just go outside the church. I'll go to the wait a minute. I don't even have to deal with these people in the club, on road. So why am I having to deal with certain behaviors in church?
Right.
So now my mentality had to change from, wait a minute, God does not equal church and church does not equal God.
Right.
There are still human beings in church.
Right.
So I've had to kind of step away from church to the point now where I didn't even want to go every week.
Right. Right.
And then, but on the other side, I'm like, oh, but I'm meant to be taking my daughter and I'm thinking about her.
Right. Right.
So I just started going that every other week.
Right.
And then it came to, so it's like I've had to see who God is separate to the building.
Right. And so take us through that though. Like, how did you see God before to how you see God now? And what was it? Was there anything that happened or done to show you this is who God really is? Because you left, and for how many years you wasn't going church, but it's not just about church, but Him Himself, because now you say you have a relationship with Him. So how did He get your attention? How did you get to the place where now you're confident to say, yeah, man, I know God loves me. I know God is love. How did He do that in for you? How did that happen?
Well, the perspective previously was that God was just an entity of sorts who was the creator, just the person that I read about in the Bible stories, rather than a personal person for me.
Right. Okay.
It was just a distant thing.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, you say your prayers at night, but as a child, the connection for me wasn't really there. Even, I mean, the just preteen stage, it was just became, like I said, this ritual where it's just you're saying the words, but still not really knowing who this person is.
Right. Right.
I mean, so my perspective of God, I didn't really have a big perspective of God. It was just God. Right. God is there.
Right.
I know God is there, but that was just it, really. Yep. I know God is there, and then you just keep it moving. Loads of people know God is there.
Yeah.
I mean, when I'm smoking, drinking, I know God is there. Right. Do you know what I mean? Do you know what I mean? During those periods of my life, it just wasn't like, oh, God is there. Right. Do you know what I mean? Right. So, like I said, through that relationship with my daughter's dad, him doing that showed me for certain that he actually was there. Okay. He actually cares for me, for my children, and for our emotional well-being. And he cares about my ex-partner too. Do you know what I mean? Right. Because we had to separate. Right. It had to, because I don't know what could have happened afterwards. Do you see what I'm saying? I don't know how much worse it could have gone or if there'd been any improvement, but that separation had to happen for the good of both of us, really. Right. So yeah, it was, because it's not always about God giving you things as such. It's Him showing you, wait a minute, no, I've had you all this time. So when me and my ex split up, and then it's like things came back to me, like looking back to say, look, I've brought you out of that. I've got you through this. And I was like, yeah, you have actually. You've done all this and this for me. And don't get me wrong, the journey from then over the past 3.5 years has been a struggle. Less of a struggle. In fact, no, it's probably more of a struggle now rather than as a teenager, because when at that time I was disconnected anyway. So
Right.
I didn't really look at the conflicts, between God and Satan. Then
Right.
do you see what
Right.
I'm saying? You're just
Right.
immune from it.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
I think somebody said to me before, like, was it my mum who said it? I think we were looking out the window. It's like, when you see people passing,
Yeah.
and they're just passing, like almost kind of like in ignorance.
Yeah. Yeah.
You
Yeah.
know, do they know God? We don't know.
Right.
Is it better to live in ignorance? So at
Right.
that time, I was living in ignorance in my younger years. So the struggle has become more prominent, I suppose. Now I'm knowing who God is and what the real conflict is.
Right.
So yeah, for me, my perspective of God changed when He brought me out of that fire.
Wow. Wow.
Seriously, that's when it all changed. It's like it just changed almost overnight.
Wow. Wow.
And that's when I started this path to say, right, okay, I need to know who God is. But I was looking for God in the church building,
Right.
which wasn't quite, even though obviously the church is a place, it's the, do you know what I mean, like-minded people, you commune with each other, you fellowship with each other, you pray with each other, you have this service with each other, but it's still not God, is it? So like I say, I had to find God separate to church. So yeah, that's how it's been from my perspective anyway.
I like that. I like that. And that's real because that is practical. And I think many are going to resonate with that perspective because the reality is, you've mentioned the reality, you're going to find characters and issues and whatnot. And that will be discouraging when you're just coming in and you're not prepared for it. Because I don't know what it is, but we all have this ideal perspective when we come to church.
Oh
We all
yeah,
do.
yeah,
We all
definitely
do.
so.
And that's why I'm really happy to hear that. Thank God, there again, thank God that you were able to divorce the two for practical reasons, because it is about him. He's not confined to a box, to a
Yeah,
bunch of bricks and cement. He is God. Before there was the church, there was God, and yes, the church has its role, blah blah blah, but he's interested in us more
yeah,
than that building. He's interested not in that cement and those chairs and that service. He didn't die for a building. Jesus died for us. So I'm really happy you said that as well. I think that'll resonate. Another question I want to ask you: what major, or can you think of a major transformation that Christ worked in your life that you'd like to share?
oh wow, okay. Oh, major, okay.
It could be major in your mind. In your mind.
Major in
Yeah.
my mind, and this one blew my mind as well, to be fair, when I'm like, flipping heck, like wow, like yeah, God is serious here. So obviously split up with my daughter's dad and thought that separating, I'll be fine, I'm cool, everybody's cool. And then I think a year after that, so we're getting into the 2019, something happened on his side. His life changed, and I got mad. His behavior changed.
Right.
I can't even go into the details,
Yeah,
but
no worries.
things were happening on his side, and I was getting mad. I was getting hateful, to the point where I had to look at myself like, wait a minute, I've never been a hateful person. I've always been jovial, can be quite cheeky most of the time. But I've never felt hate like I hadn't felt hate like this. I didn't even know what hate was until I'd gone through this thing.
Wow.
And it was something that was eating me up inside. It was something where my close friends, three of them, like all I could speak to them about was this situation with him and feeling so mad. And that's all I could talk about. I couldn't talk about anything positive. As
Wow.
soon as they said to me, "Oh, how's things with your?" Well, let me tell you
Wow.
about and just being so vexed. Going to my mum, I don't think my mum knew what to do with me.
Right.
She got two of her friends to pray for me and the situation I was in, and with him, my ex. And I still was angry, still was mad. But it's like I realized that it wasn't right to be angry. Realized it was making me feel quite ill, overthinking, thinking, overthinking, replaying, overthinking some more, I was just like, it was messing with my head. It was messing with my mind. I couldn't settle. My heart was just filled with anger and animosity towards this person. And like I said, that when we separated, the first year was relatively okay, and this thing came a bit later. So I couldn't understand why I was so mad, but there was things going on. There was actions being taken, what I didn't agree with, that was impacting on our child, but I was super mad. And then one day I'm on the way to work on the motorway, and I was just, it's like I just shouted at God in the car, like, was I on my own? I can't remember if I was on my own. I just shouted that. I was like, God, I can't take this anymore. I can't take this anymore. Please take this hate away from me. Like, shouting, like, I've had enough. I don't want to feel like this anymore. I've had enough. Like, I was shut down, really. If anybody had driven past and just looked, they were like, there's a crazy person on the motorway here. Shouting. And then I'm telling you now, no word of a lie, just like that, it's like this ball of emotion just lifted out of me and went. I can't explain. I can't. It was like something physically came out of my body, like a feeling. Obviously, it's invisible, but it felt like a physical thing came out of my body and left. I've never felt like that again.
Wow.
And me and him are still in situations.
But it's your state of mind, though.
It's a different way I've handled it now. And I'm telling you now, if that had not happened, I would not even be in this positive position that I'm in right now.
Yeah, but I can imagine, because state of mind is key. You perceive things so differently when you're filled with that kind of hatred and hate or disappointment. It's not just hate, disappointment, upset, hurtful feelings. It's like putting on glasses. When you a perspective, it's like if you have a positive outlook, even though bad things happen, there's a way you can manage them. There's a way you can right, let me think, how can I respond to this person differently now? Because you now are in a different state of mind. And that is, we can't underestimate that. That is powerful, because
everything was just drama. Everything was mad. Like, when you feel mad and you want to fire off at somebody, I've always been somebody to text because it gives me time to think about what I'm saying. It gives me time to delete. And reframe my words so that they don't sound as deep. I mean, it was too mad. But I was like, send a text, being angry. My friends, oh my gosh. And they were so helpful. Like, yeah, those three people, like, they were so helpful, and they really helped me on this journey. But still, when they're trying to help me to see things from a different perspective, I'm just like, but how dare he? It was always, how dare he? God, what about me? What about my side? What about my? But yeah, I actually got to a point where it just blew my mind, really. All that.
Wow, that's so deep. Just a quick question, and I'm going to move to the last question. Would you, probably, I don't know if you've been able to process why that hatred came, but I'm listening to your story, and it sounded like the trigger was when he's getting married. You lot tried 3 times. So was it a combination of it never worked and a bit of jealousy, or maybe, we tried 3 times, I could have been happy? And
well, he's not married at the moment, as far as I know. But he's in a new relationship, and it wasn't even so much the relationship.
So what was it? Maybe that
it wasn't even his new relationship that triggered me, because he'd already been doing whatever from before.
Right.
That didn't trigger me. it was certain actions in respect of our child
Oh,
that was,
I get
yeah, it wasn't just your
right.
stand,
Your daughter's involved.
the whole baby mother, baby
Yeah,
father drama,
yeah,
vexed because they're in a new relationship. No, 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 no. That
right,
wasn't it.
right.
It was certain things,
That
certain
was being said and
actions,
done.
yeah, that was actually wait. I'm like, are you even thinking about her? Or is
Right,
everything just to gripe me now? Do you know
right.
what I mean?
Okay,
So, but imagine though, when I think about it now, actually, it's just come to me that I had no outlet for my upset throughout our relationship. There was no room, there was no space for that. If I was going to go mad, that was going to kill, I don't know what bomb that would have ignited. So
uh,
I can see now that I held a lot of upset inside
right,
through that relationship because it couldn't come out. It had to stay
right.
in. So
But you was together for how many years?
7.
So that's a lot of emotional trauma, baggage. That's a lot.
Yeah,
And
it's
to have
it was a lot.
no outlet whatsoever, you can't talk to nobody. There's
A lot of people who didn't really know what was going on. No, no, no. Even one of my friends was like, "Well, I thought you lot were cool." I'm like, "You've got no
no idea.
idea, no idea,
And as well,
none."
did you not look well financially as well, outwardly as well?
Yeah, everything was pretty much fine. Just me, we weren't. Do you know what I mean, the excessive? Well,
Yeah.
I'm not an excessive designer person. He's more so than me.
Right.
But yeah, everything just either looked okay, but then we weren't always around people that much. So if you're not around people, no one can see. When we were around people, I just used to think, oh, please, they're gonna be okay today. Do you know what I mean? But so we were kind of away from a lot of peers for most of the time, away from our parents most of the time, so people wouldn't see. I
Right.
just remember my mum saying to me one time, "You look so unhappy." I'm like, "No, mum, I'm fine."
Well, going back to that when you was driving the car and crying out to God in complete despair. For me, I hope, no, I know people will pick up on that who need to pick up on that. That's a miracle, you know,
Oh, really,
that's a
really.
miracle.
Even my friend says to me, one of my friends says to me now, she goes, "I can't believe how far you've come." And I
Wow.
haven't even come far. I've probably gone from there to there.
No, that's how you feel. We're our worst critics, and you're a parent as well, so we got double whammy. You're already your worst critic as a human being anyway, and then when you become a parent, we're even it's worse than, because now you've got other people you need to look after. So that God just showed you there um, a reassurance to say, yeah, you can't see what I've been doing in you, but others can, and that's an affirmation. That's a confirmation. So that's how we always feel. Like if someone was to ask me, like people don't get sometimes when I'm really honest, and you've probably heard me in testimony, but when I'm really honest about how I feel about where I am, people are like, you're just crazy. Why are you? That doesn't make no sense. What I see you do, how God has used you, you got this influence, you've spoken here and here, but I don't have, and I've never had that perspective. So when others say it, I think it's important to accept it and go, right, okay, they're seeing what God has done in my life. Because sometimes we can go to two extremes. Absolute, oh, I'm this, I'm so unworthy. And where that makes you not make any steps. And to the other extreme, which is just pride, you think you're all good stuff. But there's a healthy balance where it's like, okay. And I heard a pastor say this years ago, and this I think it encapsulates a healthy balance. I may not be what I'm supposed to be, but I sure am not what I used to be.
Perfect.
If you can say that with confidence, I'm like, that's the best. I don't care if, like, people who be encouraged by that boldness will be encouraged. I know for a fact I'm not what I used to be. But
Yeah,
boss, I know
100%.
what I'm not what I'm supposed to be. And by God's grace, I'm striving. But I'm not what I used to be. And I'm going to be held back by that perspective, because for me, that's a denial of what God's love has done in my life. And I can't deny that for to make you feel better because you feel bad about yourself. I'm hoping one day you stop feeling bad about yourself and look to God. So when you hear that from your friend, God is
Yeah,
just that little assurance. No, no, no. I am working in your life dramatically. You know,
yeah.
that's
No, it was really big, and yeah, because she's she's baptized as well, and it's just like we're able to, do you know what I mean, put God into it.
right.
Do you know what I mean? You can just put God into it to say, yeah,
Yeah.
it's what God has done for me.
Amen.
And like I said, it has been a test of humility. Like
Mm,
for me, that is the word, the ultimate word that is linked to Christianity for me. You
mm,
have to find humility. You have to be humble. You have it just has to be that way. You can't become with any pomp, pride, and thinking
mm,
that you are bigger than everybody. It cannot work.
mm.
Mm. And one thing that came to me is that there's a sermon. In fact, there was a sermon that I listened to. Oh, it must be a couple of years ago now. It was by Ivor Myers, and I think it's called $1.65. And he does this little like, don't we play like when Stephen is in heaven and he sees Paul coming through. Remember what Paul did?
Right.
And he was like saying that, wait a minute, what are you doing? Oh, you've made it. Do you know what I mean?
Right.
Because you can't be in heaven wondering what so and so is doing here, because
Right.
then you wouldn't be there, would you?
Right.
You see, I was like, you can't even have that head.
Right. Right.
And what came to me much later after watching that sermon is that, wait a minute though, how can I be sitting here being hateful towards my daughter's dad?
Mm.
Because if she makes it to heaven, she's going to be looking for both of her parents.
Ooh.
And I don't want his presence or non-presence. That if he's present and I've been a part of him being present, then that's a blessing. But even if I wasn't part of his presence there, you know what I mean? Even if I'm, you know what I mean? If I'm there, yeah, then it can't be a case of what the heck are you doing here? But wait a minute though, roll out some scroll about all the things that he's done. Then I wouldn't be there, would I? Do you know what I mean? So it's a
Wow.
case of
Wow. Wow.
my child is going to want her parents, and this is why I, do you know what I mean? I have to think about the conflict, the whole baby mother, baby father dramatic conflict. That God don't even want anything to do with that. And loving your enemies and praying for your enemies is a serious verse. It's a
Hmm.
serious thing. It took me a while to get to a point where I could pray for him. I was too
Hmm.
vexed. But then every time I did, and I'm not saying it's been every day, I'm not
Yep.
saying it's been every week or month, but when I have this level of peace that has come, do you know what I mean?
Wow. Wow.
That, do you know what I mean? That he does find God in the right way and not just the God of, do you know what I mean? Feeling like he's going to be chastised for all these little things he's done. And I'm not blaming this in the relationship either. Do you know what I mean? I'm
Yeah.
just trying to look at God differently and just try. But yeah, my daughter wants to see her parents in heaven. Why should she not? And why should I be the catalyst to be poking and prodding continually towards her dad? She must not have ever seen how I felt about him
Hmm.
in such a negative light. Do you
Wow.
know what I mean? And even when she's, I'm even tested now on the humility side. I'm like, all right, Lord, man. And like, when she's done something like, she's drawn a picture then, and she's like, yeah, here's me, here's you, mummy, here's Cammy, and here's daddy. I'm just like, can I put it on? She's like, can I put it on the fridge? Do you know what I mean? It's little things like that. Or
Little
she's like,
thing.
oh, you and daddy are BFFs. I'm like, mm-hmm.
Is that best friends forever? Oh. Oh
I'm just like,
man.
this child's got no idea. But I'm like, yeah, I don't think we're that close as friends anymore, darling. But yeah,
Wow.
friends.
Wow. Wow.
So it's even that. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I think more now.
Right.
with that situation. It
Right.
cannot be, I cannot be in a place of hatefulness. It cannot happen. It cannot work. How am I meant to show people? How am I meant to speak to, do you know what I mean, other people in that situation,
Right.
to try to encourage them to be like, you know what, like, I'm on a couple of groups, and like some people have actually been quite like happy. Oh, I've just found out my ex-partner's passed away, and they're showing a sense of like
Joy.
happiness and gratitude and joy. It's like, I would not even want to feel that joy.
Right.
I wouldn't even want to feel that. That would be wrong for me to feel that way, to be fair.
Right.
So I have to really think and humble myself to be like, no, he's human. He's one of God's children too. Do you know what I mean? Irrespective of what we've done and what we've been through, he's still God's child too.
Wow. Wow. Paula, that is powerful. Only the love of God can do that. That's not that's not a human philosophy. That
No,
doesn't.
but don't get me wrong. I'm not quite at the love you're.
Oh, yeah, don't worry. We get it. We get it. We get it. It's
Okay.
a journey.
Not
But
quite there.
we get it.
Journey.
It's a
It is a journey.
journey.
I just manage the situation differently to
Yeah.
how I used to,
Yeah.
and look at it differently, and try to act differently, and try to
Yeah.
bring God into it more.
Definitely. But like I was saying, still, but just to get there though, just to get that far, come on, from what you described, you haven't gone into the details, the nitty-gritty, but you've painted a picture where everybody listening knows what you're describing, the situation you were describing. You said that it was abusive and whatnot, so you didn't have to go into the details, but you've painted a picture very clearly for you to come from that to then even be talking like that now, and not to be like, no, don't put that on the fridge, or no, don't you know what? Do you see what I mean? That's a miracle. And yes, a journey, but for you to even be talking with that positive perspective, to even see him and say, look, he deserves to be saved too. He's God's child. I'm saying that can only come because when we see the cross, right, there's an equal playing field. When we see when Jesus Christ died, there's no hierarchy. Everybody gets a little, basically we're treated as individuals, man. We've all got some baggage, we've all got some sins to be forgiven. So for me, but where you're coming from, that is very powerful evidence of just how powerful God's love is to get you like that, and get you on that journey to even be speaking like that, and the humility. That's encouraging. Last question before we close.
Okay.
What advice would you give your younger self?
Oh gosh.
What advice?
Roll out the scroll.
What advice? As brief as you can.
Advice?
Yeah, what advice would you give your younger self? I don't know which period to choose, because it's, we change, our younger self, teenager, 20s are still young, so I don't know which one to choose, but let's say, yeah, you're maybe your teenager before you even got into relationship, what advice would you give your younger self?
You know what? It's not even specific advice as such. There's a Bible verse that has stayed with me through my childhood.
Oh wow.
I've never ever forgotten it, and it will stay with me. And it has stayed with me. It's just that I've really applied it. But is it Proverbs 3, I think, verse 5 and 6? I just need to double check.
Yeah,
I'm sure
right,
it is.
cool.
But it is, trust in the Lord with all thine heart, and lean not on thine own understanding. In all thy ways acknowledge him, and he shall direct your path. That has been my verse through childhood, through teenage years, and that's the one that I've always remembered. I've never ever remembered anything else. It's always been that.
Wow.
So I would say then, in that respect, like, to hold on to that verse, because that verse is real. And if I'd held on to that verse through childhood, I probably wouldn't have got into all the mess and madness that I have done in my life.
Right.
And more applied that verse. So for me, yeah, I'd say look at that verse, read that verse, hold on to that verse, and apply that verse. Well, those verses, yeah.
Final thoughts from yourself to our viewers, specifically those viewers who would say of themselves, they don't know God, they're not a Christian, but they have an interest, they have a desire to want to know. They're watching, something has attracted them, and that's the audience. As you know, I'm specifically trying to inspire and motivate, why I've called you lot to give your stories. What final words would you give that group of people? Some encouraging words from yourself. Paula, yourself. Put you on the
It's not,
spot now.
you know what? Even if you desire God, right? Sometimes it just doesn't go that way.
Mm,
Life happens. You make choices, you make decisions. Some things just go completely tits up. It's just the way it is.
mm,
Um, I don't think it's so much desiring God. I think it's a case of sometimes God has to take you to ground zero. Sometimes He has to take you to the sea bottom
wow.
with the prawns and the crabs. Do you know what I mean?
Wow.
Before you are lifted up,
Wow.
I mean, out of the depths.
Hmm.
Sometimes it's just not about desiring God. You could desire God all your life and still not really know Him. It will take something, and you'll know that God has done something. You'll know that God has done something for you. You will know that it's God when something has just gone boom, like, and there's a level of transformation, change mindset, a change in your situation because of your desire for God somewhere deep, deep down. Because my desire for God was clearly lost and covered up with all sorts of madness. Do you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
I just think everybody, I think God will give everybody their own experience where He can show them who He really is.
Hmm.
100%.
Preach, Paula. Yo.
100%.
Well,
Yeah,
you heard it here, people. I really, really, really thank you, Paula, for
that's
being
okay.
vulnerable, courageous. This ain't easy. This ain't easy. I know it's not easy. So I really, really appreciate your time. People, you've heard it here again, another survivor story of how God got someone's attention. Average person living an everyday life. And I really hope you've been inspired, you've been motivated. As my email comes up on the screen, if you've got any questions, you might have questions for Paula or any of the speakers. You want to be in touch with them, ask them something specifically, then email me and I'll forward that message to them and see how they can get back to you. All right, in email or what have you. But any questions for us? Any comments, positive comments, questions? Put it in the comments below. I'm always about saying, and I've said it each evening, I don't have to beg for you to share this, because if you've enjoyed the meal that you participated in today, you're going to invite somebody else to our restaurant to eat the food that we're serving. But I'm just going to remind you, please share, because it helps others seeing our content. Comment, like the page. If you're on watching on YouTube, subscribe. But I really, really hope and pray that God has touched your heart. That is the main thing. You see here, we're not in church. You see, we're just real people. You see, I'm in my office. Paula's there where she is, speaking. And we're just trying to put some real, true stories out there into the society so that wherever you are, no matter what the situation is, it comes to your mind, their story. God's no respecter of person. You don't have favorites. There's no favorites. So what you've heard can be applicable to you. And I hope and pray that something has resonated with you again this evening. Thank you, Paula. And same time tomorrow evening, same place. Share, like, comment, subscribe, follow us. God bless you all. Take care. Peace out.